Hi, I am so happy that you're here. Today we're going to go over January's food spending report. But first, I'm going to make myself a cup of tea. I'll meet you at the table. Let's get into January's food spending. In case you're new here, I'm Meghan Splawn. I'm a longtime food editor and now freelance food writer who has spent over 20 years in food media working on everything from cookbooks to TV shows. And I am this year finally putting all the things I know about meal planning, about grocery budgeting, about recipe development to the test, bringing them all together to reduce my family's food spending. I totaled up every single dollar we spent in 2025, and I was shocked to learn that we'd spent over $32,000 on food. To start this project in earnest, I spent all of January and a couple of days of December, to be honest, tracking every single dollar again, but this time without any judgment, with some awareness. And I've been using both a planner and journal to track my spending, as well as a Google Sheet that I created and shared over on my newsletter at meghansplawn.substack.com. If you'd like access to that, you can become a supporting subscriber. Here we are. I've been tracking from December 30th to today, which is January 28th. And I'm yet again shocked at the total number that I've spent. So I'm going to share some details about where our money went as far as food this month, share some highs and lows, as well as some recipes that I really loved from the month. And then in the coming videos, we'll work together to set a new budget for each month moving forward. January's food spending report. It's not great, y'all. Total spending, $3,063.87. Yes, that is actually more than we spent in January 2025. I want to give you all kinds of caveats and be like, but we had a planned vacation. We knew some birthdays were coming up. Those things are true. We still spent a lot more money than I expected. But here are some glimmers of hope. Total weekly grocery spending was $1,087.19. It only made up 35.5% of our overall food spending for the month of January, which makes me hopeful that with some strategy around not eating out as often and some bulk shopping, that we can really dial in the total number, even if we end up increasing what we spend on weekly groceries. Speaking of bulk groceries, $681.85 were spent on bulk groceries. Only about $400 of that was spent at Costco. Otherwise, I was taking advantage of some sales on things that I really like at Whole Foods and restocking our freezer on some shortcut meals from Trader Joe's. Total dining out spending, $1,104.95. That is 36% of our total budget was spent on eating out. Now, we did spend 5 days in Washington, D.C. for my daughter's birthday trip. We have made a tradition the last 3 years or so of taking the time after the holidays, where my husband's business is a little bit slower, the kids are still off from school, to go on a small family trip. And while we were able to save money by doing a little bit of grocery shopping nearby our rental, we also ate out lunch and dinner most days. So that's part of why that total is so high, but also we like to eat out, and we'll talk more about that in a future episode. Special shopping spending. This includes ingredients for my daughter's cake. I was invited to a friend's birthday party. Actually, we had 2 birthday parties in one weekend, and I made treats for both of those. So I'm counting those as special shopping spending. $189.88. February spending goal. I don't know what it is yet. We are going... Daisy has something to say about it. February spending goal, TBD at this point. I am currently working on next week's video and next week's newsletter post where we'll talk about how you can actually set a realistic budget that you'll stick to. So if you're not already subscribed here or over at megansplawn.substack.com, you should definitely do it. I have a lot of big ideas about how I want to improve our spending, and I want to use the lens of like improving things, talking about what we're doing instead rather than focusing on what we might just cut out. Daisy's very upset because a neighbor is working in their yard, which they're allowed to. She just doesn't know that they're allowed to. One thing that I always want to touch on in these monthly spending recaps is how I'm feeling, because I can't untie food and emotions. Food and feelings are tied. I think spending and emotions are very tied, and getting to the root issues around my own overspending is going to involve probably some therapy, but also journaling and exploring my emotions. So I would overall say that January was really a mixed bag. I got halfway through the month and was like, wow, I can't believe that we've already spent $1,500 on food. I actually think that was like on January 9th or 10th that I realized that using the spending tracking Google sheet. But then there were also moments where I felt proud of us. I started a little notes app page where I started noting every time we talked about spending money, like, oh, it'd be really easy to just grab Starbucks on the way to the airport, but we didn't. We made breakfast at home before we left. And I like tracking those moments that I felt proud of making different choices. It was also really hard to know that I had this project going on and not be able to come and say, look, I saved a bunch of money this month, because one, I didn't, and two, I wasn't even trying. We're just trying to get to know our habits this month, and then we can start making slow progress. I also think that journaling about my spending has been really helpful, and I want to just share one entry from the week of January 12th. On one side, I'm tracking what we're spending. I'm using this Hobonichi pen, actually. You know this classic, like, it's 4 different colors. Black is for any actual like grocery expenses, including bulk groceries. Blue is for eating out, but not fast food, and red is for fast food. And would you look at that? That means there's only 3 colors on here, actually. So almost every day I spent money, and below my meal plan, I said, it was a very expensive week. Did some planning and bulk shopping towards saving money next month. True. Lots of fast food drive-through for Ella, plus research for recipes. Ooh, that is true. We did Starbucks drive-through a couple times because I was trying to recreate their double smoked bacon, egg, and cheddar sandwich. And I think we really nailed that. You can find the recipe on my channel. We walk through all the recipe development and talk about improving coffee overall. And then the full written recipe is over on my newsletter at megansplawn.substack.com. Then good things. One good thing. 3 cute little coffee dates with friends. I'm not going to change that habit. I'm spending my money locally. I'm spending time with friends. It's usually less than $20. I just want to flag right away that there are some habits that need to change, and some habits that I love and that I'm going to keep. And then, oh yes, this was the weekend. Overspent a bit on supplies for friends' birthday treats. We had 2 birthday parties to go to. I made scotcheroos and I made Ina's Betty's chocolate cake. And while I was at Walmart with like just needing 4 things on my list, I bought a bunch of disposable containers that I can like gift food in, including foil pans and cake boxes. And I ended up spending over $100 that I hadn't planned to. So just an example of how purchasing without thought can lead to overspending, and it didn't feel good that week. Moving on to January's food spending highs and lows. I want to flag that $910 of that $1,100 was spent on our Washington, D.C. trip. No regrets. We ate really well. We did spend $78 on groceries, and we were able to do breakfast at our rental, and that was great. Largest grocery expense, $403.87 at Costco. I'll talk more about this late February, early March, but I think there's a strategy to be had for bulk shopping in a thoughtful way to save money on weekly groceries. Smallest grocery store expense, $4.56 at Whole Foods. I went into Whole Foods and I only bought the thing that was on my list. Please clap for me. Number of fast food orders, 15. I'd like to change that habit. It's probably not going to start in February. We are in ongoing discussions with our teenage daughter about how we can improve with that. Number of coffee dates with friends, total 4. Three were in 1 week. I need to pace those out a little bit. Finally, let's talk about money that I was happy to spend or meals that I loved from January, because I think as important as it is to be critical of the money that we're spending, I think we also need to give some gold stars where gold stars are due. Starting with happy hour drinks and takeout pizza from Protest Pizza in Washington, D.C. One of the nights we were in D.C., my husband and I walked to the pizza shop that was closest to our rental. We did not know that it was happy hour, but that ended up being a huge bonus. And then we had 2 drinks each, ordered pizza, walked the pizza home, and the pizza was so good, and the pizza shop was so cute, so welcoming. Really loved it. If you're in DC, highly recommend. Felt like a good use of our money, and we got both a mini date and fed our family. Homemade ice cream cake for our daughter's 14th birthday. 3 years running now, our daughter has requested an ice cream cake. I used the recipe from Sugar Geek Show, which I'll link on my newsletter. And I feel a little bit proud of myself because before we went to Washington, D.C., ice cream was buy one, get one at Publix. And so I grabbed 2 quart containers that I needed to make that cake and stashed them in our basement freezer. Buying coffee in bulk. This is a new experiment that we're taking on in January into February. Instead of buying a bag here and a bag there, we bought a 5-pound bag of coffee from our favorite coffee roaster. You can learn more about that in this episode where we talk about improving coffee at home and making a copycat Starbucks. Well-planned Costco run. Like I mentioned before, I think I did a good job of buying flour, sugar, getting things for our freezer that I think will pay off in February. And then a couple of recipes that I loved. I made sausage rolls for the first time. This was both taking advantage of puff pastry that I overbought in December and sausage that I bought on a BOGO sale at Publix that was in the freezer. And that made a nice little, what I'm calling a back burner dinner, something that I put on the meal plan that I can make on a night where whatever I actually planned is too laborious or just doesn't sound good. So it was really easy to pull the sausage and puff pastry from the freezer in the morning and then make that for dinner instead of whatever I had planned. I mentioned Ina's Betty's chocolate cake, but I want to mention it again because I made it for a friend's birthday. It was a huge hit. I love that recipe. But there's always like a little bit of like cake trimmings and a little bit of leftover frosting, especially if you double the frosting that's included in the recipe, which I think you should. And I turned those into little containers of what I'm calling cake bits, like the cake trimmings and the leftover frosting. And so I was also able to have leftover cake as treats for a couple nights the following week. And that was really great. I made New York Times Cooking's sausage ragu, and it made more than the 4 of us could eat in one night. So I was able to freeze some for future use. And while it was like a long cooking recipe, it wasn't a hard recipe. 9 out of 10, I would make it again. I also made from the website Modern Proper Italian wedding soup. And while hand rolling however many, I think it was like 60 tiny meatballs on a weeknight, was just like a poor choice on my part as far as recipe timing selection. We really enjoyed it for dinner, and I had leftovers to eat for lunches the rest of that week, and that was really great. And then shout out to Sumo Citrus because they are my most favorite seasonal citrus. And I, at the beginning of January, made a goal to eat as many Sumos as I could. And I shared that with the internet on Instagram. And so many of you were like, hey, instead of spending $3.49 a pound on them at Whole Foods, you can go to Trader Joe's and get 6 for $5.49. And while they're like a little bit smaller, I was really happy to be able to stock up on Sumos for the rest of the month. Thank you so much for being here. If you want all of the links to the recipes mentioned here, if you want the spending tracker that I am currently using to track my own spending, you can find all of those things over on my newsletter at meghansplawn.substack.com. Next week, we're going to be talking about how to make a grocery budget that you'll actually stick to. So make sure that you subscribe so you don't miss any updates. Bye. See you soon.